Good morning, everyone. My name is Leah Landrum Taylor. I am the Assistant Director here with the Department of Economic Security with our Office of Community Engagement. First and foremost, I want to just say welcome. Welcome to this celebration today. We're so glad you guys are able to join us and to applaud several Arizonans who have moved their lives forward, and also appreciate those who contributed to their successful reentry, because we know it took an entire team to help with that. Today's event is part of Second Chance Month. It's a nationwide campaign to create a culture in which everyone feels free to embrace one another and inspire our communities to create a place of welcome and belonging to those that are in need of a second chance. And this morning, we have with us joining our director, Michael Weishart, who will have an opportunity to open up with a few remarks. He was very instrumental also in helping to move our department forward with this second chance program that we have. So without any further ado, I would like to turn it over to our director, Michael Weishart. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Leah. I really appreciate folks taking the time out of their busy schedules to come have this important conversation about the ongoing trajectory of this amazing collaboration that has occurred. A couple of things came to mind when I was thinking about what I wanted to share in a couple of minutes this morning. The first, I think, is that, as we've worked through the last year of pandemic, I think it's become more and more obvious how incredibly important the work that we've done in this space has become. When you think about how challenging the employment environment is right now and how challenging the employment environment is going to be going forward, how competitive it's going to be, it really speaks to how incredibly important and instrumental our work continues to be to help every individual have an opportunity to succeed in our economy in 2021 and beyond. I think for all of our business partners that are participating in this conversation, there isn't a one of you that isn't feeling the pressure and pain of trying to find a fully qualified and engaged workforce to help you and your business succeed. I know we're feeling that at DES. I am certain that you all are feeling it as well. The other thing I really thought about is when we were putting together the Second Chance Centers as a collaborative between the business community, the Department of Corrections, DES, other invested stakeholders, it really was the foundation from which we built a collaborative that allowed us to manage through the pandemic. It's been a bumpy road for sure. For all of us, and there are absolutely issues that have arisen and things that I wish we would have done better or could go back and do again. But thinking through where we are today and emerging so much stronger and in so much of a better place as an economy, it really was those foundational collaboratives between the business community, the nonprofit community, and governmental entities that has allowed us to manage through that. So there's a lot to celebrate here. I won't take up any more time because I know it's a packed agenda of celebration as well as all of the additional work that's still required for us to succeed in moving this initiative forward. So much to be done, but absolutely taking a moment to pause and say thank you and celebrate the successes is in order. So I appreciate the time this morning and I look forward to the rest of the conversation.
Thank you, both Assistant Director Landrum Taylor and Director Weishart. Thanks for being with us today. My name is Jeff Taylor and I will be your Master of Ceremonies today. And before we get into our agenda, I've been asked to share a little bit about my second chance story. So although I look a little different today, I'm here wearing a suit. I started this path to recovery living on the streets of Phoenix and living, out in a bush somewhere. And I was like any real estate, I guess, it was location, location, location because when I was homeless, the bush that I was living in was right by public transportation. It was near St. Vincent de Paul where I could be fed, and I was right by legal services because I was also committing some drug and drug motivated crime. But I didn't start off that way. It's not like I went to, the drug offender booth at career day in high school. I came from a good family. I grew up here in Phoenix. I went to Central High School. I'm the last of 6 children. And so we had a broad, family, a good family. And I was kind of a small kid in grade school. And in high school, I started to gain some size and some speed. And so I started playing a lot of sports. I played football and baseball at Central. And as I became a junior and a senior, I kind of skyrocketed up to 6'4", and I could run pretty fast. So I became an all-state football player and was recruited throughout the nation to go to college and play football. And I ended up going down to the University of Arizona and also studying at that time to be a doctor. And so everything was looking good at this point in my life until I got injured. And when I was injured, I'd never been injured before. And so when I was injured, the first narcotic or mind-altering substance that entered my body was prescribed to me by a doctor. Now, this was back in the mid-'70s, and we didn't know a lot about opioids or opioid addiction at that time. And all I knew is that when that narcotic hit my bloodstream, it gave me a very false sense of well-being. In other words, I was worried about falling behind in school, or I was worried about my scholarship. I was worried if I was going to play again. And then I took a pill and all of a sudden everything was okay. So I didn't get addicted to that narcotic at the time, but it sure parked in my brain. I ended up getting out of University of Arizona and got super lucky. I didn't pursue a medical career. I got into the stock trading business and was hired by a very prestigious firm here in the Southwest and had a very successful career for the next 9 years. I was a stock options trader and was able to leave that business at the absolute peak of my career at the age of 29. I had built a house overlooking the Pacific. I had no debt. I had the fastest production car on the planet in the driveway and looking, once again, very good on the outside. But what was not occurring to the outside world, or was visible to the outside world, is that I had an increasing addiction to narcotics when I was a securities trader. Back then, that was, again, something that was even acceptable in that line of work. So to kind of describe how that can occur is that people can be functioning for quite some time, but addiction rarely stays the same over time. And I became non-functioning almost immediately after I left that business, and spiraled quickly down, into homelessness and living on the streets and in and out of Maricopa County Jail more than one time. And I was doing mainly at that time homeless survival crimes. Finally, I was released with really realizing that I was being released from incarceration with the same addiction that I was arrested with. So then I started doing what's called geographicals. I said, well, Phoenix may be the problem. So I went to Sedona, and then I went to Flagstaff, and my criminal behavior followed me. So I ended up in Coconino County Jail, and I was held on to there because now my crimes had escalated into the felony realm, what we call drug motivated crime. And I was in that jail for 6 months. I became very ill in that jail. And after some medical tests, the sheriff, who's a marvelous man, Sheriff Joe Richards, up in Coconino County, came to me with a group of people to help me because he was about to let me know that my tests had come back that I was HIV positive. Now, I used a needle once, and that's all that it would take. And then because I have now what they thought was a deadly bloodborne disease, I was put into a solitary confinement, as I could not mix with the general population with this deadly disease that is communicable by blood. And, there's fights and things that happen in jail. And so there I sat for 30 days, and then just miracles started to occur. They did some more testing, and after 30 days, they said, well, you don't have HIV. And then I appeared in front of a judge, and the judge sentenced me to a drug treatment program called the Harbor Light program at the Salvation Army. And that's really the path of recovery that I remain on today. It's been a bumpy road. I certainly am not immune from the patience of addiction. After 12 years of recovery, I was hit by a car while I was riding my bike and relapsed on painkillers. And that sent me to the Arizona Department of Corrections back in 2008 and 9, and was released in 2010. So my message today is that addiction is very patient. I will, this month, at the end of this month, I will pick up a 13-year sobriety chip. I'm very proud of that. But the opportunity that's been afforded me, because I was given what I needed, which was drug treatment, is that same Salvation Army that I walked into as a homeless drug addict, I am the current outgoing chairman of the board of that organization. And it has certainly been an honor to work with most of the people that are on this panel or that are on this call today. And every day I wake up and I just thank God that I'm not going to sleep on the streets of Phoenix. And I remember thinking that I just hope that I wake up before the ants do, because living on the streets, it's a very predatory environment. You know, exposure to the elements can be rather severe here in Arizona. And so the work that I do today, I try to turn around and help people that are still suffering and give them at least the guidance and direction that was so freely given to me. And with that, I would like to now just introduce, we're going to have a series of videos today from different people that had second chances from all different walks of life. And now we will hear from Jesse Heath of Coconino County about his journey to success.
My name is Jesse Heath. I spent most of my life in Coconino County. I currently work as a surveillance officer for the Recovery Court program. Just signed up for school at CCC. I'm going to do the CCC to NAU program. And I'm a person in recovery. My reentry journey began in January of 2000. It was the last time that I was incarcerated for crimes that had to do with substance abuse. The Coconino County Sheriff's Detention Facility, for the last time, I was at the end of my road. I was in the backyard of the last house on the last block in a tent and had no more options. And I stayed there for just over 9 months. And at some point in my stay there, I was interviewed by a caseworker for the Exodus program. And, you know, she might as well have been, you know, an angel. She didn't seem to fit in the jail. She was this, you know, 5'4" young woman, and she just didn't really fit in the jail. And she interviewed me, and she started to talk to me about, you know, substance abuse and her experience with substance abuse. And for the first time in my life, I was able to get honest and somewhat real with another individual. And she was screening me for the Exodus program. And I entered into the Exodus program on my own will, and started to learn about the disease of substance abuse.
Well, I've considered Jesse a colleague for many years now, and so it's really hard to remember Jesse as he was when he first came in. I remember that he had really done a good job in Exodus, and you know, Exodus is a really, really important program that our jail is invested heavily in and is suspended right now, and we feel the consequences of that dramatically. But we hope it comes back. But it's changed so many lives. And for many people like Jesse, it was the beginning step of the life change. And so it really put Jesse on a fast track to success in recovery court.
When I first met Jesse, he was in recovery court, obviously, after not being very successful on probation, on regular standard probation. And he had been in custody, so he looked like a lot of them do. You know, he was in the jury box with the jumpsuit on and the handcuffs, and you know, he didn't necessarily look like he was ready.
I think Exodus, you know, got me to a place where I believed that change was possible. And then I was put directly into the recovery court program, which, you know, is a wonderful program. I actually believe it's the best recovery court program, but I work for them, so I might be a little biased, but I also went through the program and I had exactly what I needed. I had, you know, a wonderful judge who was invested in the program and believes that substance abuse is a disease that can be treated. I had a, you know, probation officer who is very invested in her people and cares deeply about them. And I got, you know, some community service hours, and I decided to donate my time at the family food bank. And I remember being in the kitchen preparing these meals for people that were, you know, worse off than I was, and started serving them dinner. And I think it was at that point I decided that I wanted to figure out how I could help people. I was on the East Coast visiting my grandmother while she was, you know, passing away. And I got a phone call from Jessica, and right away I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. And she tells me that there's a nonprofit behavioral health job in Flagstaff that I have to apply for. She didn't even give me an option. She's like, no, you have to apply for it. So, you know, reluctantly I did, and I got the job. And, you know, that's where I realized that, you know, it feels good to invest yourself in your community. Quickly, I started changing their program, and I started going into the jail to interview men that were going to be released. And I would try to set them up, you know, with the things that they might need, like a sober living house or clothes or, you know, vouchers, food boxes.
I did call him, and I don't think he answered the first time because he thought he was in trouble. And I still don't know if he applied because he thought he had to listen to me still, or if he wanted to do it. But I mean, like I said, just the connections that he had with people, I know that sending people in recovery to him would definitely be meaningful for those people. Not only because they knew him, but because he would be able to relate to those who were in the same situation.
As Jesse mentioned, you know, this is a program like Exodus, which is based on that idea that, you know, these are our people. These are our brothers and sisters and children and mothers and dads, and they're in our community. And as a community, we need to invest in them so that they can have their best future for themselves and for their family, but benefiting the community. And for, you know, a very small price compared to the cost of incarceration, we have the ability to help change people's lives. I've also come to understand that, you know, if you have a model that says that addiction or substance use disorder is an illness, well, then we say, well, okay, what's the medicine? So what I've come to understand, and it was a participant's comments that made me think this, that this is the medicine, and the medicine is not a pill. It might include MAT, although that's not what I'm thinking of, but the medicine is going to substance use treatment, wrapping yourself up in support groups, finding employment.
We have that common problem, so we'll have this, common solution, and there's nothing you can't do, right? But you have to work for it. And my grandmother would also say, many hands make light work. Like Judge Reed said, it's going to take a community.
Just listening to Jesse's story, it reminds me of how the criminal justice system and the treatment community is working more and more together for a positive outcome like Jesse. And really the multiplier effect that we all enjoy when someone like Jesse finds recovery, and just imagine how many people he has helped over his career since then. And so I would like to just remind the people that to think about the players in this story that helped fuel his success. And as we hear, the story shared today, listen for common themes for that success. And a reminder that there's a Q&A button to submit questions throughout today's event, and they will be gathered for use during the panel discussion that will be coming up here shortly. But next up, we have an employee of DES's Family Assistance Administration who is here to humbly share her 30-year battle with alcohol and drugs that kept her in and out of incarceration.
My name is Tina O'Neill, and I am a PSE 2. I have been in Arizona for about 3 years now, and I've been at DBME, and April 18th will be my year. When I moved to Arizona and started living with my sister Regina Weiler, of course, and she got me started with a small group at the Dream Center and gave me a safe place to live so that I could learn how to be a family member and start making friends here. And then she kept me posted on jobs. I was too afraid to apply at DES because I had no skills. So I took a computer course, a Microsoft 365 course, and learned computers. And then I applied for the job and I got the job. On October 10th of 2012, I went to jail for the last time. I came from a very traumatic childhood, which bled over into went on for my adult years until I had created such a prison for myself that I didn't know how to get out of it. So on October 10th, 2012, I went to jail for the last time, and I also hit my knees, and I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And that's when my uphill journey began. I did 14 months in a recovery center. I did 2 years of community control, and I finished my probation. After that, I just worked and just did the best I could in Florida. Then I got an invite to move out here, and it really changed my life. I got my driver's license. It was $15,000 fine to pay. So I worked and saved my money. I worked 2 jobs and saved my money and got my driver's license back. When I got here, my sister Regina, she introduced me to a small group at the Dream Center, and I started making friends. And like I said, I started learning how to be a good family member because I'd never known how to do that because I was always so high or drunk that I had lost those skills, when I was younger, or maybe never had them. I'm not sure. So living with her and her husband and her family, I was afforded the opportunity to go back to school, learn computers so that I could have a desk job because I worked at Mayo for 2 years. And I decided I am 54 and I cannot be doing this manual labor anymore. It's hard. It's a hard job. It's a custodian janitorial work. So instead of complaining about it, I just said, I got to do something about it. So like I said, I took the computer classes, and then Regina kept me apprised on the jobs that were open, and I just was scared. I was like, I only have 8.5 fingers. I got in a car wreck and lost a couple fingers, so I can't type fast, and my computer skills are not great. So she goes, apply anyway. Don't let that stop you. So I did. I went to the interview. Then they did ask me about my felonies on the application, but I went to the interview and they never asked me, but the gal that was interviewing me said if I got hired, she really wanted me on her team. She was super excited to have me. And so I told her, okay, here's the deal. I need to tell you that I am a convicted felon and I have drug charges and I have been clean for almost 9 years. So that it won't affect my job, but I just want you to know that when you do a background check, you're going to find a whole lot of stuff going on. And it was like a month later, and then they called me, or they sent me an email and told me that they were offering me the job. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. This is amazing. So amazing. Me, only God can take a drug addict and make him a state employee. And that is what I always tell everybody. Don't give up on your dream, because I, just a year ago, was cleaning the hospital 10 hours a day, pushing a cleaning cart around. And now I work from home. I have a desk job. This is my office. And I work at Dabimi, and it's amazing. It's great. I'm awesome on the computer now. I can do, like, I do sometimes 15 calls a day in work cases, so many cases. So, and I am, I've always been an overachiever, but it's nice to be an overachiever, and I'm sober that I can take part in it and take pleasure in it, be excited about something and be proud of myself for doing something good. Now I have retirement, now I have medical, now I have a job that, you know, is going to take me into the future. I have a career now that I could never, it was never possible before, because I was struggling to be, it was always manual labor. So now I sit behind a desk for 8 hours a day, and it's amazing. And all the glory goes to God. And I just want to thank Arizona for this second chance. It really is a good program, and it helps people like me who have been out of that kind of life and who want to stay that way and really need a leg up to get started, to get their foot in the door. So thank you. I'm just really super grateful and thankful. And because of Dabimi and the DES program, the Reentry, I'm able to have a future when I just really threw my life away for so many years. Don't be afraid to try. Just don't give up. Put yourself out there to learn how to accept help from others. You have to humble yourself and know that you need help, and you have to let other people help you. Because you don't have the answers. I didn't have the answers. I needed guidance. And I got that through, you know, my sister, Regina Weiler, and DES, Dabimi. Everyone's been great, and they've helped me along the way. People really want to help people. And that's what I say, you know, humble yourself, let people help you, ask for help.
I think Jesse's story is really indicative of many people's stories who are just fantastic stories of where people were and where they are today. And I don't know if you all noticed also the passion that Jessie has for her position. So I just want to thank DES for giving her that opportunity to be the success that she is today. We're going to switch gears a little bit now to youth in foster care. You know, foster youth face many uphill battles, and today we will hear from one of them who was able to overcome homelessness and justice involvement with support from a local East Valley family. His story has been shared on 3TV here in Phoenix, and today you will see how he is doing since his last interview.
When was the last time you felt like you actually had your own home, your home?
It's been a while.
Do you remember when?
So when I was about like 13.
This young man is now 23 years old. His life has been a roller coaster for nearly a decade. It started when Jose Jimenez Lobo's family immigrated from Honduras. Shortly after, he was placed into foster care at age 14, separated from his mom and siblings and put in a group home.
At that time, there was 18 kids. It was a lot.
At one point, he was taken in by a family. He was only with them for about a year, though able to eventually graduate from Desert Ridge High School. Graduation meant everything to him, and he thought his life was about to start.
I ended up back in Phoenix, and I was living with a friend for a little bit, and then from there it went all downhill. I was homeless, and I didn't have no place to go. There's a church on 19th and Cactus. Me and a friend were able to put some cardboard box on the floor and we were able to lay down there.
Jose says the problem was once he aged out of the foster care system, there were little resources for help. He was left completely on his own without a single cent to his name.
What drugs did you use?
I used meth and marijuana on my own, you know, like I'd be like, okay, it's gonna help me stay awake, you know, or it's gonna help me not eat. That way I don't have to go steal food. It was the only way that I was able to survive.
After 3 years on the streets, he got in contact with some of the only advocates he knew for help. This problem was much bigger than just Jose.
I just started helping people on the streets everywhere I went, and they were all kids that had aged out of foster care.
Janet Wenninger is a foster care advocate who drives around looking for kids and young adults who are homeless. She started taking in kids to live with her and her family, including Jose.
You just want them to be comfortable and feel like they're wanted.
5 months ago, we met 23-year-old Jose. He had recently aged out of foster care, was homeless, and spent many nights here on the streets, just like these people tonight. But on this Giving Tuesday, he is now doing so much better and is on the other side of things, helping people who are homeless now, just like he was this time last year.
You guys go?
Thank you.
My pleasure.
There's so much going on and there's so much I'm excited to tell you about too.
Because back in August, Jose Jimenez Lobo was in between homes, without a job and without a family to call his own. Since our first story, Jose now has a room with a loving family in Chandler and works every day at a car wash to make money to help support himself. And now,
when you give out blankets, you see smiles of other people, how thankful they are.
He's giving back to those whose shoes he's been in, whose shoes he was in during Christmas last year.
I was in the same spot you were at once, so it's my pleasure.
Jose and families part of the nonprofit Crusaders of Love, bringing sleeping bags, blankets, clothes, backpacks, water, and a food truck to the homeless in downtown Phoenix.
I'm so thankful to be able to do this.
And Jose and these families come out here about 2 times a month to give goods, clothes, and food to the homeless. And the organizers here say, always, it's Jose's idea to do this.
Jose Jimenez Lobo, and a little bit about myself. I'm currently working at a car wash where I've been working at for 2 years. I love the job. And I also staying active by playing sports with coworkers, and I'm staying active by going to the gym. I come from a background where like drugs didn't really exist. I'm from Honduras, so like we really didn't know much about drugs and stuff like that. And so I had to overcome a lot of the stuff by just being true to myself and committing to not doing that stuff again, and staying sober. Janet came into my life when I was really in need of a support group, and her and Amy kind of came to me, or I came to her house, and that's where I met her husband, Jeff, as well. They kind of both took me in and they let me stay at their house, and they gave me those three warm meals that I needed, always making sure I was eating and making sure that I was safe and not homeless anymore.
Amy had called me and said that they found him, and that he was really tired and needed some help. So I went over to where they had him at the time, which was one of the workers at DCS's house. And I remember he was really, really tired, and he was just really out of it. He didn't know what he was doing anymore. He was just so done with being on the street. I know it definitely was a hurdle with the justice system because of just the things that you have to jump through whenever you get into any trouble. And so there's a lot of fear around it. He was really worried about things that would happen. And so he just wanted to do everything right. He didn't want to mess up. But at first, when he first came to our house, about every 3 days or so, he would get a little bit uneasy and he would want to leave again. And so he'd sneak out and we'd have to go get him and bring him back. But he never wanted to stay on the streets after that, but he would always first think that he didn't belong somewhere. So he would always go back. So that was a little bit of a hurdle. And then he realized we weren't going to give up on him, I guess. So he decided to stay. I knew that he needed something more to do. Crusaders of Love was actually formed because of Jose and his desire to go out and help other people. And so I was already going out and helping people, but I wanted it to make something that he could be a part of and to help him grow and give back. And so he loved it. He loves going out and giving back to the homeless and just, you know, bringing in food and clothes and stuff like that, and just loving on them and showing them that they can do it too. He's a great role model.
We actually do help a lot of people out. There's a lot of a lot of people out there that aren't getting those 3 meals a day. And we kind of just stop by and help them out with that. And so it's always fun. And, you know, like just like the awareness it brought as well to other people. Now other people are wanting to get involved. So it's been good. Everything is possible through God, and you have to find that right support group that are willing to find the right support group, and everything. You can do anything through God, through Christ who strengthens you.
Okay, I'm going to have to gather myself here for just a moment because I had a connection through Janet with Jose. And believe me, when Janet calls, the answer better be yes. So I've never met Jose, but I spoke to him on the phone several times when he was incarcerated. And just to see him and the success that he is today is, he was the most polite guy I ever talked to in jail. He kept calling me Mr. Taylor, and I said, it's Jeff. And he would say, okay, Mr. Taylor. So Janet, I see that you've joined us, and I just want to ask you a couple of questions. One is what really inspired you to take on such a task as helping, you know, this man that had been separated from his family and had been on the streets for 3 years and really creating from that Crusaders of Love?
Well, when I met him the first time, I just felt this deep love for him. I could just feel like the Father's heart for him, that he just wanted to hold him and just make him better. And so I did hug him, and he didn't want to let go. And I knew that he was just lacking love, and that's what he needed. And that's what most of them need. They just want love. And so I think we're supposed to give that. And I know we are supposed to give that. And if we will all just reach out and help the people that God sends us to, that are right in front of us, usually, you know, it makes a huge difference. Even it is a little bit inconvenient, you know, sometimes when you have to bring them to your house and take care of them, but it's worth it. It is all worth it. And it's for God's glory.
Well, Janet, I know that it's not only just Jose that you help. As you said, God will lead you to people. And I know for a fact that you have been called out of your house late at night, and you have found many individuals on the streets of Phoenix. And as you said, a lot of people like Jose just need to have someone that believes in them. And just, you know, they're coming from an environment where most all human contact is really very negative. And to have someone come up and give them a hug like you did with Jose, and just that human touch, and just that somebody cares, and as you would say, that you just loved on him, has made all the difference in his world. And you continue to inspire many people, including myself, on how to be a better person and to follow in your footsteps. So Janet, thank you for all the good work that you do. I think that we're going to move on to our panel, I believe. And let's wait just a moment while we get our panel members up on the screen for you all. There's Representative Blackman. Hello, sir. I think we'll start with you, Mr. Blackman.
Hello.
So I'm going to just ask for you to just introduce yourself for a moment, and then I will ask you a few questions.
Okay, great. Well, I'm Representative Blackman, and I represent the 6th Legislative District in northeastern Arizona. So if you think of Flagstaff area and you just kind of branch off over to Sedona, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Tonto Basin, Snowflake, Taylor, Holbrook. It's a pretty large district, the second largest district in the United States. I've been doing this. This is my second term, and that's Representative Udall behind me. We actually have a break on the floor here, and I just wanted to come on and participate while we are in this break.
Thank you, Representative. And for those of you on the call today that don't know, is that Representative Blackman is the chairman of the newly formed Criminal Justice Reform Committee in the House and has really led the charge for smart criminal justice reforms that this state and many other states are looking at and are badly needed. And it's just the thread of what we're talking about today, and that is getting people what they need, and and the outcomes can be just phenomenal. So let me ask you this, Representative, how does pretrial diversion and substance use disorder programming assist in reducing recidivism and promote successful reentry?
Well, what it does is it identifies, it takes the inmate or the person we're talking about, it removes them from just the crowd, and we start to identify them as individuals and to try to look at their individual needs. Right now in Arizona, we have a system that basically just kind of holds everybody together, puts everybody under one category, and then we expect positive outcomes after that. And we can't do that anymore in Arizona. So the diversionary programs that you're referring to are tailored to the individual, because when we found that they are tailored, that we are able to see that return rates to prisons are dropping. Folks are actually getting out and staying out. They're actually getting jobs, they're getting trades. We had a discussion this morning in caucus about the literacy, and folks are being identified early on when they are in processing stages that they may need those types of programs. So it's more individualized, and it just helps overall.
Well, Representative, you're a mentor of mine, and thank you for taking on these very difficult topics, especially as an elected official. It can be a very fine line that you're walking, but I thank you for your courage and for your belief in people like we're really spotlighting today. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now we will move on to a friend of mine also. And actually, I'll just tell a short story. We heard about the Exodus program. But before the Exodus program, there was the Alpha program in Maricopa County Jail, and that's where Karen Hellman and I met. And Karen, if you would just take a moment to introduce yourself, and then I have a follow-up question or two.
Absolutely. My name's Karen Hellman, and Jeff's correct. I've known him for over 20 years now, showing our ages. I am currently the Assistant Director for Inmate Programs and Reentry with the Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation, Reentry. And what that means in layman's terms is, under my division, I have addiction treatment, sex offender treatment, education, career technical education, religious services, general programs, and then community corrections.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Karen. And what are some things inmates reentering the community can do prior to their release, and also immediately after returning to the community, and then on the longer term, what really is on the horizon for them for successful reentry, not just in the first 6 months or 9 months, but year after year?
I would say first and foremost, I mean, of course, I'm always going to plug for our programs. If they're put in a program, give it their all, get everything they can get from these precious resources. But removing that formal element, the informal element is they need to start mending their relationships in the community. Because already we've heard a couple of the folks who spoke earlier, the videos, they talked about how those relationships were key to their being successful. So start to mend those relationships, start to write that brother or that sister or that mother whom you haven't had a good relationship with, and start to see what you can do to build on that, because that support system post-release is going to be so important. I also encourage them to, they don't get paid, fabulous salaries if they have a whip job. If they have ACI jobs, they get good salaries, but save money, even if it's just a little bit each week. It does two things. One, it saves to help them post-release with all the needs they're going to have, but it also gets them in the habit of being more controlled in their use of money and learning the skill that we all struggle with, myself included, of delayed gratification, So all of those sort of unintended consequences, good consequences that come with saving, it actually teaches them very good skills. I'd also say they should start to learn, whether it be through a formal program ideally, but even informally, start to identify their triggers. And I don't just mean triggers for drug use. That's huge, but they're triggers to saying, oh, F it, this is too hard. I'm going to walk away. I'm not going to go see my community corrections officer or my probation officer. Or, oh, this job, I can't take it a day longer, so I'm going to quit before having another job. All those types of triggers are things that have kept them, unfortunately, in the system and coming back. So learning those triggers, actually rehearsing with a friend while they're in prison, whether it be a bunkmate, a cellmate, whether it be if they're in the changing offender behavior program, but rehearsing those skills. Because like all of us, we think things in our mind. And then we think, okay, well, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it. Then when we actually come to the moment, we just sort of deer in headlight and go back to our old ways of doing things, because that's the easiest way. But the more you rehearse it, the better you are. So lots of literature that shows that. So that's all pre-release. Also, and to start setting goals, small goals, obtainable goals. It is great if your overall goal is that you want to eventually have a CEO position. Good, more power to you. I'm 100% behind you, but make it small incremental steps so that you can actually see your progress. After release, the biggest is if they're on supervision, work with your community corrections officer or your probation officer. Be honest about the struggles you're having. Both probation and community corrections really have pivoted over this past decade, and they want to work with that person, but they can only work with the person if they know what's going on. And they can only work with the person if they show up. Don't abscond. Once you abscond, we don't have a choice. We have to legally write a warrant on you. We don't want to do that, so continue to work with us. And then also, it's the small steps and remembering that there's going to be obstacles, and that's okay. That's life. That's dealing with life on life's terms. For any of you who are familiar with recovery, you're going to have heard that saying. So, there are the actual tangible things. Again, reporting, getting the job. When we release you from the ADCRR, we've enrolled you in Access, but make that final call. Be proactive. If you know you have a substance abuse issue, get enrolled before you start using.
Well, thank you.
That's a lot of vomited out at you.
And Karen really walks the walk. Karen was a friend of mine before I relapsed, and she was a friend of mine after I relapsed, and she's always there to help from her position in really the criminal justice system. The last person that wants an individual to go back to prison is Karen Hellman, and you've given your career to that. So thank you, Karen.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Hope to see you soon. And now we're going to move on to the courts, and we have with us Shonda Breed. And Shonda, could you just give yourself a little bit of a plug here on what you do and why you do it? And then I've got a couple questions for you.
Sure, thanks, Jeff. Yes, I work for the Arizona Supreme Court under the Adult Probation Services Division, Programs Manager, and I have experience being a probation officer and in the probation system for about 20 years now. Also Chief Probation Officer in Navajo County at one point. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Shonda. Now, what role can probation play to help individuals have a successful transition into the community? And how are these changes showing up as successes in probationers? Because you've been at this a long time, and what it was when you first entered to what it is today, maybe you could describe that a little bit to us.
Oh yeah, definitely. In our role, like you said, it's changed so much throughout the years. And I think what we have accepted and acknowledged is that our role can actually make or break someone's journey of transition and reentering into the community. To put some perspective on all of this, for the group and the attendees, community supervision, probation, parole, we are usually the aftermath, right? The aftermath of the arrest, the aftermath of charging, sentencing, jail. Probation is usually before prison, but recently not so much. We have about 300 cases coming out right out of prison onto probation as a probation tail. So our role's changing a little bit with that. With state probation, we have about 85,000 adults on probation at any given time. And so there's a lot of folks on community supervision. That doesn't include the numbers for parole. That doesn't include the numbers for juvenile probation and parole. That doesn't include tribal probation. That doesn't include federal probation and lower jurisdiction types of probation. So there's a lot of folks in the state that are currently trying to transition to a better place in life, and that have experienced the aftermath of arrest, charging, and now they're in the system, right? And so our role, I believe too, is to help provide this moment of change, reflection, healing, resource, restoration, treatment. But it didn't always used to be like that. And our role is to also help to break this cycle of going back into the system. And so about 20 years ago, we started to make some changes. I know you know Kathy Waters. I'm going to drop her name in here too, because she's been such a big part of all this change. But we started to do things like introduce a statewide assessment to target the right interventions. We started to change our policy to mandate training for officers. We started to, not look at things like fees and fines, but rather someone can get off probation if they haven't paid all their fees and fines. So we started to make some changes. Since 2008 until now, we've been able to decrease dispositions resulting in revocation to prison by about 23%. And then also decrease dispositions resulting in revocation to jail about 32%. So lots of great change going on there. But, how are we doing now? Well, about 3 years ago, and I don't know if you've experienced this or not, Jeff, but we were all introduced to something called the Reentry simulation. Have you been a part of that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so impactful, right?
Yeah.
And really, it's a day in the life or a month in the life of someone who is justice involved, transitioning from incarceration back out into the community, that has some set of terms and conditions on their shoulders that they have to abide by, right? And it's just so impactful. And we usually bring in justice involved folks, to also share with how we, those who are working in the system, can better do our job. So it's so impactful. So we decided to, as a group, and about 3 years ago, we all got together, DOC, federal probation, tribal probation, community-based programs, and faith-based organizations. And we said, okay, how can we bring this reentry simulation to everyone? So we've been starting to work it. And if you want it, let us know. We can give you our information after, because it's for free. We'll do it. But we've been starting to train probation officers, parole officers, right? Caseworkers, judges, therapists, attorneys, even peer support groups, to have the conversation of, oh my goodness, this is so challenging to be on some type of community supervision, especially when you have a lot of terms and conditions over you, and you're also trying to come out of a place like prison and re-enter into a place called the community. Lots of difficulties are happening there. So, us as the probation system, we were looking at still, even though we've made a decrease in all of our dispositions, so to speak, we still have many technical violations happening. So we have to look within, right? And see how we can do things better. Well, we've been using this reentry simulation as a training point and as a talking point of how we can improve our system further. So right now we're looking at condensing the uniform conditions. Right now we're looking at changing statute for IPS mandates to make them less rigid. Right now we've put in words like re-engage prior to filing a warrant for someone absconding. We have also implemented a reentry program statewide. Maricopa County, we took their lead. They actually started this reentry program, and they started with about 23% absconder rates of those who were coming right out of prison to probation. Well, since they've been working this program, they now have a 1% absconder rate. And it's because of the re-engagement. It's because of having the conversation with those folks and saying, listen, you're not going to get in trouble just yet. Like, let's talk through this. You're not going to go back to prison just yet. And so we've actually now also mandated in our policy, in our code, for probation officers to reach in with those who are in prison 90 days prior to release and to develop a release plan. So that's huge. To talk about things like housing, transportation, medication upon release, all of those things that where someone could maybe fall through the cracks. And also we've said, okay, officers, now let's give these folks up to 6 months of time to transition prior to focusing on any terms and conditions of probation. We're going to look at critical needs. We're going to look at how to get them grounded, how to start building a new foundation for a lifetime of change. So these are huge changes, and you know, we're continuing and we're committed to do more.
And Shonda,
but it's going to take all of us educating each other in this. So thank you for that.
Shonda, thank you. And what I heard is what I lived. And that was for the first time in and out of jail several times. And then I was on standard, I was on unsupervised, I was on intensive. I think that probation was inventing levels of probation for me until my intensive probation officer showed up with all of those terms and conditions, a stack of paper like this. And then she said, that's kind of overwhelming. And I said, yeah, it is. And she said, but I'm here to help you. And that's the first time. I owe so much to probation and how they're collaborative and helpful. And I think what we're learning from all of our panel members and our many of our videos is really the importance of transition. The importance that you can do a great job in the jail, you can do a great job in the prison, but transitioning is really, you know, the most important part of that person's success. So thank you, Shonda, and the good work that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Okay, now we're going to move on to my friend Jan Weathers. And Jan is, well, Jan, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then I'll have a question for you also.
Okay, Jeff. I am retired as the reentry coordinator for ADCRR. I spent 14 years with them. I'm also chair of the Governor's Gold Council for faith-based nonprofit subgroup. That's to reduce recidivism. And I'm also the CEO and founder of Jewel Behind the Mask, helping women to see the beauty in them through art, coaching, and mentoring.
Well, thank you, Jan. And good to see you, yes, even though it's virtually. So how can community-based organizations, including faith-based organizations, play a role in supporting people who are reentering the community, both at initial prison release and also over the long term?
Well, this is a passion of mine. They're the obvious things: employment, housing, transportation, you know, for people coming out of prison. The unobvious is this: advocating for those who are reentering into the community, not feeding the stereotypes that the community can have about people coming from the justice system, correcting the stereotypes when you hear them in the community, holding people reentering back responsible. They have to participate in the success of their reentry. And I think a big part is also welcoming people to church. Church is a phenomenal resource to help. Networking and collaboration are very important in reentry. The Governor's Gold Council for, which works to reduce recidivism, the faith-based nonprofit subgroup, is working on 2 initiatives: the Family Support Program. This offers support to the families of the incarcerated loved ones, and a mentoring program for people coming out of prison. The community can play a very, very important role in sustainability. When grants and other funding goes away, the community can be the glue that keeps everything together and the magic that makes it happen. Also important is to understand, and this is, I think, very, very important, that people have paid their debt to society and that they need a chance for success.
Jan, thank you for saying that. And it seems up until, you know, in recent years, that there are so many barriers in the community. They've paid their debt, but still have to check felony boxes for housing. They still have to check felony boxes for employment. And, you know, those are continual punishments to individuals that cause them to get back into their own way. So I thank you for your passion and for your, I think that, you know, after Jan gets done with criminal justice reform in the state of Arizona, it's going to be looking entirely different. So
Well,
thank you for what you're doing. We'll be back to you shortly here, Jan.
Okay, thank you.
And now we have one of the busiest people I know. Her name is Mary Lee Fowler, and she has an office up in Prescott Valley, and she is the executive director of MatForce. So Mary Lee, just a short introduction of yourself, and then I have a question for you.
Wonderful, thank you, Jeff. So as you said, I'm the executive director of MatForce, and MatForce is a community coalition of people from all different sectors of the community that work together to reduce substance abuse in our county. And we also started the Yavapai Reentry project in 2012. So we offer reentry services to individuals returning home from DOC and the county jail.
And as I said, one of the busiest people, when you look at the size of the office and the scope of work that MatForce does, it's pretty amazing. So Mary Lee, how can behavioral health providers enhance services for people with mental and or, you know, big in our equation here today are co-occurring disorders, mental and or substance abuse disorders, who are reentering the community in ways that boost long-term recovery and reduce recidivism?
Thanks for that question, Jeff. And I just want to start by saying thank you to our behavioral health professionals because they do such important work for us in Arizona. And I want to acknowledge that it's very difficult, you know, it's complicated when we're looking at mental health issues and substance use issues. But what we have learned from our perspective, again, working with Reentry in Yavapai County, is that so often individuals that are returning home are struggling with a dual diagnosis, that they're struggling with both mental health issues and substance use disorders. And so we see the importance of our mental health professionals addressing the person as a whole and looking at both problems at the same time so that they can both be addressed. We also have seen the importance of frequent in-person visits. And I know that that's been a difficulty with COVID, but we have seen so much success when, you know, people that are struggling with these issues have those frequent, consistent in-person visits with their professionals. We want to just, you know, take our hats off to the mental health professionals that are looking at social determinants of health. And we've seen where now there's some funding to address, you know, those basic needs. And this has come up over and over in our discussion and these testimonies today, that it's very difficult to address, you know, the substance use disorder or the mental health issues when you're homeless or you don't know where you're going to get your next meal or those types of things. So we're just really grateful that there's, you know, we're seeing a transition with that where money is being put into providing these basic needs. We know the importance of teaching basic life skills. You know, sometimes when someone has been in prison for a long time and they simply don't even know how to use their phone, and there's different challenges that come in with not knowing, you know, just basic life skills and the importance of that as an enhancement to their treatment. We also see the importance of relapse prevention planning. And, you know, oftentimes, and as even you had expressed, Jeff, that relapse may be a part of recovery. And it's so important that an individual realizes, you know, resources for that relapse prevention. Also coping mechanisms. And, you know, Jan brought up stigma and stereotypes. And I think a lot of times, again, people that are struggling with use disorder or mental illness, and, you know, particularly when they have re-entered back to their community, you know, they don't have that understanding that they're struggling with a disease. And sometimes just, you know, that stigma prevents them from getting the help that they need. So, you know, coping mechanisms around that stigma and understanding is so important. And then the last thing I just want to bring up is the importance of naloxone. And, you know, what a great gift to us that is a drug that's available now. And so many lives have been saved, especially with the illicit fentanyl and the deaths that we're seeing. So I think that it's very important that behavioral health specialists are making sure that every client has naloxone available to them.
And Mary Lee, I think that what I'm hearing from your presentation is that you've been able to really navigate a lot of the health providers and gotten people to work together and to collaborate. And that has been a model, as you know, that we're now using in other parts of the state, hopefully this year, through the legislative process. So thank you for being a big part of that pilot up there, and all the people that you were able to help, and the people across the state, you know, that will be able to benefit also from what you've taught us from Yavapai County. So thank you so much, Marilee.
Thank you, Jeff.
We're going to move on now to really one of the biggest barriers is that people need to get really gainful employment. Employment is such a key to one's success, and we can lose people that are reentering very quickly. It's like, how many doors can you have slammed in your face before you start to get really discouraged? So we have Tim Tucker at DES Reentry. And Tim, if you could just describe yourself and do your little self-introduction, then I'll ask you also.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Tim Tucker. I'm the Deputy Administrator with Workforce Development Administration at DES, and all the workforce programs are under our scope, including our reentry program.
Mm-hmm. And what kinds of support do people reentering the community need to sustain workforce participation? Not just getting a person a job, but keeping them in employment to avoid recidivism.
You know, to your point you made, right? Gainful employment is instrumental in keeping individuals from recidivating. It's crucial for not only to obtain work, but to retain it. And DES and Department of Corrections have developed many workforce programs and educational programs, whether it's in the second chance centers or our community-based centers, to really help these individuals. We need to help these individuals get confidence, make sure that they understand they can do those jobs, help them build the hard and soft skills, help them determine, understand that, your responsibility is to show up for work. And we have many mechanisms that we use to do that. And one of them is also many community partners that we work with across the state. We work, and I mentioned the second chance centers. That was one of the big ones that we really ramped up back in 2017 with Governor Ducey's initiative, with the partnership with Department of Corrections. That really highlighted it for DES of how we can serve these individuals. The second chance centers are on pause right now, but we did serve 44,525 individuals through there, which was very impactful. And we learned a lot of lessons of what the needs were from them, where we could incorporate it into our pro offices where we're at, or even all of our Arizona at Work offices across this state. Because to your point, right, getting a job, for many is the easy part. Keeping that job is the hard part, right? It's always being available for these individuals. Marilee and Jan and others on this panel have a lot of great resources as well, but sometimes they just need somebody to talk to. Also getting the person in the right job. Ultimately when they get out, everybody wants a job, but if you get them in the right job and they're happy with what they're doing, that helps as well.
Mm-hmm. Tim, thank you so much. And it's not just one area that we're talking about for one's success. We need employment, we need behavioral health supports, we need housing. And again, we need people just to believe in people because they're coming from environments where maybe they haven't had a lot of that in their lives.
And if I can add, a lot of these individuals are educated or skilled going in, or they get educated or skilled upon release. So it's up to us to understand what their skills and positives are and put them in a position to be successful as well.
Thank you, Tim, so much for being with us today and all the good work that you're doing, not only in the jobs once they get out, but the job skills training that you're involved with before they get out. So they have those skills before they are released from prison. So thank you once again, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, here is a question, maybe for one of our panelists. Are there ways that the state of Arizona is addressing the housing crisis that is so prevalent, especially for previously incarcerated individuals? Karen.
Oh, thank you. Give me the easy question.
But maybe you could talk a little bit about New Freedom and places like New Freedom.
It continues to be a challenge. It continues to be a challenge for some populations more than others, in particular sex offenders. We do have a couple contracted facilities that we put some of our higher need offenders in. But basically, we do rely on community owned and operated halfway houses if an individual is not going to a private home. And as Jeff mentioned, there's a new resource called New Freedom, which just recently opened, I want to say about 8 months ago, although with COVID, time has become elastic, so I could actually be off on timing of that. But they're a nice big, they actually refurbished a hotel. So they're actually a nice big potential placement for a lot of folks. They've also gone the extra step of their working with Access to have their services approved. So a lot of the offenders that stay there can stay there with no out-of-pocket cost, which is, again, huge. The last couple of sessions ago, there was a bill that was passed related to sober living homes, which has presented some challenges with people in the community opening up some of these homes. But I have, over the past couple of months, noticed an uptick of people learning how to navigate that system, learning how to be able to get to the point where they can be credentialed as a sober living home. But it is a challenge. I know that ADCRR and I think a lot of the county probation also, we really strongly encourage when it's possible and when it's feasible for someone to go to a private residence, simply because it tends to be a longer term place for them. In some cases, that doesn't work for that person, either they don't have someone, or frankly, sometimes their family situation is very dangerous for them, so they shouldn't go to. But that is a challenge. We are fortunate with ADCRR in that when our reentry centers are up and running, particularly when a PIMA, we're able to keep someone there so we don't have people homeless on the streets. Because as mentioned earlier by a couple of the panelists, already being out in the community is a challenge for folks post-release. Then you add on their substance abuse issues, which most of them have. And then if you throw homelessness on top of that, my goodness, I don't think I could succeed. And it's really what we look at sometimes. So it's like that has been resource has been a godsend to us, but it does continue to be a challenge, particularly and most importantly for our folks who have sex offender or arson charges. Unfortunately, usually those are the people that end up homeless.
Thank you, Karen. I was able to go to New Freedom last week, and I was so impressed, not only in the scope and the size of the program, but just the way that people were behaving there. They were having fun. There were 12-step meeting, probably 300 people at this 12-step meeting, and they were, all in it together. And it was really enlightening. I mean, I'm a neighbor. I'm not too far from there. So thank you, Karen.
You're welcome. It's a great program. It's a large program too. So I know they have a lot of our offenders and a lot of the probation offenders there.
Yes. Yeah. So Tim, we did get a question, and there was a question coming in about the second chance programs that they're on pause right now. Could you maybe let us know when those second chance centers might be reopening?
Well, Jeff, I don't have that answer, and Karen may, but let me just make this point here. Although the second chance centers have been down for this past year on pause, our teams, Department of Corrections, the DES, and many community partners have gotten together and brainstormed and thought, how can we still serve this population? And we came up with the RED program, Resource, Employment, and Dedication Program. And it's all done virtual. We currently have 304 people that's went through it virtually. It's a smaller program. It's not quite as robust as a second chance center, but we're providing them resources. We're providing them how to resume build, how to interview. We have 20 plus community partners that are involved in it. And it was really a great opportunity for us to pivot and determine that there's other ways for us to be delivering services. And let's use that virtual capabilities. And I believe I just heard that we will be expanding to 16 units across Department of Corrections this month, which, and Karen can maybe touch on the second chance centers, but I really think our RED program collectively has really been a nice, successful program as well to serve this population.
Thank you, Tim. Did you want to add to that, Karen?
Just briefly, we are in the process of crafting a reopening plan for COVID. We're in the process of, you probably all read in the newspaper, we're inoculating our inmates, getting them the vaccines. So we're going to have to be done with that before we would reopen the second chance centers. But even post reopening the second chance centers, my hope, and I think I speak for Tim as well, is that the RED program, which was developed out of this, allows us to reach an even broader scope in some of those inmates, which may not be appropriate for that second chance center, but can still utilize a lot of that resources and help. So out of COVID, something good did come.
Thank you both, Tim and Karen. We're going to move on to Anna Ochoa. And she, as I said earlier, has a video that we'll view here. It's about 4 minutes for the Family Involvement Center.
My name is Ana Ochoa. I work for the Family Involvement Center as a parent ally. My story is, I consider myself a parent that has navigated both DCS and criminal system at the same time. My reentry was in January 26th of 2016. Society is not accepting to people being released from prison. Having a number, and a number, I mean, my DOC. Being a lost mother, trying to figure out how to be let back into her children's world. I was referred to the help I needed, which is Family Involvement Center. I did parenting classes. So in order to show consistency and willingness, those certificates that I received for almost 2 years at Family Involvement Center helped me and proved that I'm consistent and willing and motivated.
Miss Lillian and I were lucky enough to be family education trainers at the time that Anna came in. And we really watched Anna come from sitting in the far, far back of the room. If she could have sat outside the door, she would have. But she sat in the back of the room. She did an amazing job. And eventually she was actually at the point where she was like a class leader. She came a long way.
We like to engage parents in that classroom because it's a little overview of what the DCS system is. I'm on a committee for incarcerated parents, so I'm working with a gentleman from DCS, and we're trying to find a support system so parents that are going through incarceration don't have to sever the rights. Just don't give up. And then I also held on to, when I was going through my DCS case, those words, I am still the mother. So, I use don't give up and I am still the mother to my boys, to keep going, to cry, to look for what I needed and to be a better person of what I was then to now.
If you look at Anna in the beginning, when she left the system, the prison system, and re-entered the world, she was quiet and she was shy, but she was a sponge. She was learning. And so just not to count people out, but to realize that, these are amazing people that just need to understand a little bit more about themselves, about life, about how to navigate the system, how to stay in contact with their families and their kids, and maybe how to mend some of those fences.
I think there is a prime example of one of the big challenges in the state of Arizona is how our foster system has grown. And at the end of Anna's story, she has been reunited with her children because there are many, many dependent children that are in temporary foster care where rights have not been severed, and that they are willing and able to parent their children again, but they also need a lot of help. So congrats to Anna. Now we'll move on to Ariane Duvall, and we have another short video on the Pima County Reentry Program.
So my name is Ariane Duvall. I'm 39 years old. I'm a single mom. I work 2 jobs. I go to school, and I have a 15-year-old Boston Terrier. So after years of struggling with depression and anxiety, I guess I started having problems with that in my teenage years. And then in my 20s, I started coping negatively with drugs and alcohol. And so I think really that's when I started getting involved with the criminal justice system. It just continued in a downward spiral until in 2016, I was arrested for a violent felony. Someone that was diagnosed with chronic depression and PTSD. It was, only after I was able to overcome my mental health conditions, get that addressed, that I was able to address my substance abuse problem. And so after I addressed my substance abuse problem, then it was, I had to deal with my felony. And so it put up a lot of barriers for me as far as getting employment and getting housing and being a single mom. It was very stressful time, trying to figure it out. It's not just one person and one organization. I mean, Bonnie Bezada, from the bottom of my heart, I swear everything that she brings me just turns to gold. I found the Mama program, or found her through the Mama program. The Getting Ahead program was super helpful. NAMI Arizona has helped me in my mental health. COPE Community Services, Pima County One Stop helped me get actually not job training, but training for like help with my resume. Help with funding, getting into school. The Women's Foundation of Southern Arizona. Right now I'm in a scholarship program through Interfaith Community Services. So not just one person or organization. There's a lot of help out there in the community that's helped me to get where I am right now. In being in the Mama program, it helped me to, it was invaluable information that I gained from that. So much, I liked it so much that I went back and, became a facilitator so I could help other moms in need. But what I learned was how to be resourceful and how to, come up with an actual, manageable plan to figure out what resources I needed, and then figure out what resources I had, and then compare those to the resources I had out in the community.
I'm Bonnie Bezada, and I work with Pima County in the Community and Workforce Development Program, and I work specifically on poverty issues. So I'm the Ending Poverty Now Program Manager. And I created MAMA, which stands for Mothers in Arizona Moving Ahead, with the support of the Pima County Health Department and my division in workforce development. MAMA was created for that purpose, to support those moms, and to really also understand there's a systems change piece to this, and that we need those moms to help us figure out where the system isn't working. So MAMA was to create the space and the supportive environment so that moms could think about what is their future story, and where would they like to direct themselves and their families. And we do a lot of conversation and talking and learning about the resources that are out there. I love the program because of the participants like Ariane, who is now a leader in the program, right? She's a facilitator and can be that coach and guidepost for other women coming along.
What am I most proud of? I guess, just how far I've come. I used to be in a pretty dark place, and I surrounded myself with toxic people, and just continually made bad decisions. And I'm proud of myself that I was able to, in spite of my felony, be able to have a nice living place for my daughter and I to live, and have not one but two good jobs, and being able to go back to school and have plans on obtaining my bachelor's degree, and and just to see the difference of where I was then to now is makes me feel proud. There was a lot of times that I felt like giving up, and I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, and I felt a little hopeless. But every day it gets a little better. And the only thing constant in life is change. So just keep doing good, and keep moving forward, and things will get better. Started out at NAMI as a volunteer, and then in December I was promoted to program manager of their youth mental health education program, which brings me great joy because I really feel like that's where my life went astray, was with my untreated teenage mental illness. I feel like every day I surprise myself and shock myself with things that I would have never imagined possible. So I try to drill that into my daughter, like, don't doubt yourself, don't put limits on yourself, because really we're the ones that put limits on ourselves, because I've accomplished some stuff that I wouldn't have said was possible, and probably the people around me wouldn't have said was possible, but here I am.
Yes, and there you are. Again, the multiplier effect. She's now one of the leading facilitators, drawing from many different organizations to be the success that she is today. And having people walk in the door and see and hear Ariane's story, it gives people hope. So thank you, Ariane. And now we're going to move to a video from the Yavapai Reentry Project, and then we'll have a few comments from who directs that program, Mary Lee Fowler again. So first we'll see the video, then we'll hear from Mary Lee.
I came from a pretty dysfunctional family, a lot of drugs, alcohol, abuse, mental, physical. I started using drugs when I was 13.
I came out here to Arizona to play, to get away, to party. So I started selling drugs to people I knew, and it wasn't big amounts, but it was enough, and it was continuous, where the police decided that they had enough.
They sentenced me to prison for methamphetamines in my system, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest.
Prison was really, really hard at first. It really was, because you're so devastated by everything you've lost. You lost all your material things. You lost your family's respect. You've lost pretty much everything in life, and you're just totally devastated. Plus, you're coming off drugs.
Pretty much all form of choice is taken from you. You're told when you can eat and sleep. You're told what kind of job you can have.
There's a lot of hard parts. Sleeping on a mattress this thick, that's a really tough thing to do for 7 years.
I was scared to come back to Prescott. All I knew how to do here was get high.
There's a lot of hurdles. You got to get your license back, you got to get money, you got to get a truck, you got to get your tools, you got to get away from the people that you used to use with, and that's a hard thing to do, because that's all I knew out here was people I was using with.
People coming out of prison need everything. They need a life, which includes a place to live, they need a job, they need food, they need transportation.
I decided to get involved with the Yavapai Reentry Project because I didn't want to go back to that life anymore. I didn't want to go back to prison again. I sat in there watching people come in and out and in and out, and that scared me to death, and I didn't want that to be the end of my story.
So now when I finally got out of prison and I met up with somebody from this Yavapai Reentry, they were just so warm, and they just helped me, and they just took a lot of that fear away, that I had somebody to lean on.
One of the things that Yavapai Reentry does is we give a welcome home basket to these prisoners who are exiting prison, which symbolizes we are here to support you and we are here to make you a success.
The good news is this program gives us that opportunity to establish that relationship, to build a bridge of hope so that when they come into the community, they don't feel alone.
We have found that the people who have somebody who they can go to that helps them, that is there for them, that mentors them, greatly impacts their success.
I was able to go to college, get my Associate of Arts degree, met the man of my dreams and married him, my children back in my life, 2 beautiful grandbabies because of it. Me and my husband just bought a house. Life is good.
The success of the Yavapai Reentry Project has been phenomenal. For folks who complete our program, we are seeing that they are 6 times more likely to be successful and not recidivate than the average prisoner who's exiting prison.
You know, when I was sitting in prison, I was thinking about getting out. Some of the things I really was looking forward to was getting a motorcycle and riding, seeing my family and hugging them, getting back to work and being a part of the society. And that's what I value today. I value going to my 12-step meeting. I go every day to my 12-step meeting still. And it's not only for me now, it's for other people because I get to help people. I love it. You know, I just love what life has brought me.
The Yavapai Reentry Project was the second chance for me. It gave me a life that, like, I never knew I could ever have.
Folks leaving prison have served their time. They are coming back to communities across Arizona. And if a community welcomes a returning citizen with open arms, makes them feel welcome, then it's a healthier community for everyone and it's a safer community for everyone.
The biggest gift that Kay gave to me was that she saw me as a human being, not as a prison number, not as a drug addict, not stupid, not dumb. She saw me as a human being who just needed some help and encouragement. And that was the key for me. That was the key. And I just recommend that for anybody.
Just wanted people to notice that Mayor Lee was able to partner with criminal justice in the prosecutor, the top cop really in Yavapai County, along with now Chief David Rhodes, the Sheriff's Department, and then community partners and volunteers that are coaches. Mary Lee, what do you really attribute your great success?
You know, it's just so interesting to look back on how the program started. And it started the idea of somebody that had returned from federal prison and talked about how difficult it was. And it was just a group of community members. You know, the premise of MAP Force is that we're people from all different sectors that think of community problems and look at solutions. We had no money. I want to say that because I think this can happen. I mean, money is a wonderful thing, but it happened with no money. Just the desire from community members to have this happen. And I believe that the success is from many different things, but number one, you know, we do not require anybody to be in this project. It has to be voluntary. So we let people know coming home from the Department of Corrections and now with our jail also, and they have to say they want to be a part of it because we want to meet them where they are and work with them together to meet the goals that they've set for themselves. And then really the key to our success are these wonderful volunteer community coaches that again are volunteers. They're not getting paid by anybody to work with individuals. They just simply care. And it's been such an interesting journey to look when we started and struggled getting coaches, and that has gotten easier. It's not perfect, but it's gotten easier as we've gone forward in this process. And, you know, really it boils down, you know, Sheila talked about recidivism, which is one indication, but what we give the people that walk in our door is hope. We say to them, we care about you. We're a community that wants you to be successful, and we're going to come alongside you and help you to meet the goals that you've set for yourselves. They're not our goals. They're their goals that they've set for themselves. And it's been a beautiful journey. And, you know, really success can be measured in many different ways with this project. But I think, you know, just again, telling people you are important, we care, and we want to come alongside you has shown success in many different fashions. And Jeff, if I can just really quickly say that, you know, we're so grateful that the Access saw the beauty of this project. And I think you referred to it earlier, but actually gave us money to put together a toolkit of everything that we developed through this project. And we've trained 5 different counties on implementing community reentry projects with the one uniqueness, again, that they're working with volunteer community coaches that are paired with, you know, justice-involved individuals. So I can go on and on. I know we're short for time, but thank you for the opportunity to share about the Yavapai Reentry Project.
And I would really encourage the people that are on the call today to reach out to Mary Lee and to learn what they have learned in Yavapai County and how that can be brought to your own communities there. You've learned a lot over the years, haven't you, Mary Lee?
Definitely have. So,
thank you again. So now we're moving on to the Phoenix Rescue Mission reentry story. And the Phoenix Rescue Mission is a marvelous organization. I actually worked for them for about 6 years, and they are just people just filled with the Holy Spirit and just helping those that are least among us. And they are an awesome professional organization.
My name is Rich Heitz. I am a lead case manager at the Phoenix Rescue Mission for the street outreach team. And at this point, I'm out hitting the streets and just, loving on people, giving them resources, options, avenues to turn instead of turning back to the streets. We help people with clothing, detox. We help them to see that there's hope.
And how did your reentry journey begin?
I would have to say, well, kind of went like this. I prayed out to God that he would take my life so I wouldn't hurt my mother no more. I had just come back from picking up my drug of choice, which was heroin. And I wanted that next hit to take my life. I wanted to die. Well, fortunately, I didn't die, but my mom found me, got scared, called the PO. This is a few days later, and the PO said, well, I want you to go to Phoenix Rescue Mission for a 3 to 5 day detox. And I said, well, you can just send me back to a yard, send me back to prison. That's okay. He's like, no, I can see in your eyes that you want to stop, that you just can't. And there was truth to that. Because of the physical addiction, I could not stop. And he said, no, I'd rather you go to the Phoenix Rescue Mission. And I guess I was his first, person that he had sent there. And I said, all right, I'll go tomorrow. And he said, no, you'll be there today at 5 o'clock. I said, all right. So I went home, I slept for a little while. Did my last hit of heroin that day, and I went to the rescue mission. And when I got there, they told me there was no 3 to 5 day detox. I could either sign for a year program or go somewhere else. So I would say that would be the start of it. It started from a prayer, for God to take my life. He took it in a way I never expected. They allowed me to come into that program. And the following day after I went there is when I actually got into the program, and I had no option. I wasn't in no shape to go anywhere else. So I signed for that year program. They loved on me and they walked me through my my relationship with the Lord. It took me about 3 weeks, of watching, looking around and seeing guys hugging on guys, telling them they love each other. And it wasn't weird. The reality is that, that God put us, in our lives not to be alone. And those other men were there helping me with my journey because I was struggling in my own head, this, what's wrong with this and that. But 3 weeks into the program, while tearing up in the chapel, I was that prideful guy that couldn't let a grown man see me cry. And so I went out to find the biggest guy, there. I was like, hey man, why am I tearing up? What is going on? And he said, it sounds like the Holy Spirit. And like I said, I was 3 weeks in, I was like, no, really, why am I tearing up like this? And that's when they walked me back into the chapel. Just like, no. And that's when I asked the Lord into my life. I had to completely turn. And to be honest with you, the Lord took away my my want and my desire, my craving for drugs and alcohol kind of quick within the first couple of months. I had nothing, no more for it. But then my pride is the last thing that the Lord is working on. Now I don't want nothing from no one. I just want to love on people and encourage them and just allow them to see and feel that there is freedom out there, and we cannot do it alone. And the Phoenix Rescue Mission showed me that, there's so many great recovery coaches. When I went through there, I got an awesome mentor, and you know, if I could tell you a little bit about my life, I spent most of my life running from the cops, selling drugs. And my mentor so happened to be an ex-cop. I didn't know it at the time. And when I met him, I'd see him every Monday and Wednesday. And then finally a month later, I said, look, man, I said, I'm sitting here trying to figure out why you're here to bust me. And it's just driving me crazy. He said, I've been retired for 15 years. He said, I'm just here, you know, to love on you and to walk you with Christ. He said something about how's it feel to be on the same playing field, ex-cop, ex-drug dealer, same playing field for Jesus Christ. And it blew me away. You know, there's so much truth to that.
I'm Pamela Morrison. I'm the Community Relationship Officer for the Phoenix Rescue Mission.
And can you tell us a little bit about the program that Rich entered and any of his journey that you're aware of or would like to share about?
Sure. Well, the Phoenix Rescue Mission offers a long-term residential recovery program for men. And we also have a facility for women and mothers with children up to the age of 12. Rich happened to come into our program at a time when we were going through a lot of change and growth. So when he talks about that entry point of coming in and thinking that we had a 5 to 7 day detox, and it was really just you come in and you jump on board. I mean, we were a long-term program at that time. Now we have a little softer entry and we call it WRAP, but it gives people an opportunity to kind of determine, is this the right place for me? But what we've also then added are people like Rich who are out there doing outreach on the street, offering people hope, offering people help to find their way to the right place. And we hope that it is the Phoenix Rescue Mission that's going to be that place that gives them the help that they need. His story always touches my soul because I got to watch Rich take that journey. I happened to be at the men's campus during that time. And he was a rough and gruff guy who came in and, you know, hadn't really had women friends or really had a lot of, I mean, he had friends, but they weren't friends because you loved each other. You were friends because you did stuff for each other, right? And what we've become are just really good friends. I trust Rich with everything with my life. I know that what he's doing and the services he's offering people is the best that he can give to anybody. When he's out there and he speaks truth to people on the street, that's what people need to hear.
I'm still sober. You know, I'm able to love on people. Like I said before, with asking for nothing in return. I've been a part of Celebrate Recovery for 5.5 years. I am a ministry leader with Celebrate Recovery. I mean, Miss Pam helped me get my license back after not having it for 24 years, thinking I was giving up. And she helped me through all the paperwork, all the mailing back and forth. And lo and behold, I actually got a license. And, you know, after that, getting my license back, I got me a nice Harley. I now have a beautiful wife that I've been married to for almost a year. I sponsor men with Celebrate Recovery, just looking to love on people and lead them to Christ and help them with their recovery. I was asked if I wanted to come work on the street outreach team. And I was like, yeah. Like, you don't want to pray or think about it? I'm like, that is an answered prayer. My office is a vehicle. And I'm out hitting it doesn't matter where someone's at. I come to them. You know, I don't make them come to me. I go to them. And I get to go out there and just help people to get off the street. I'm not there to judge them. That I'm there to help them, to offer whatever, like water, hygiene, clothing if they need it. If they need a meal or something, you know, I'll take them somewhere to get them something to eat.
You know, I think, you know, Rich has made an impact in this community. He works side by side with other agencies and helps connect people to amazing resources. But he is a resource for the courts and he is a resource for the police. So when they used to chase him, it was for the bad that he did. Now they chase him for the good that he brings to those that they're trying to help. And I'm proud to call him friend.
What I'm hearing in a common thread here is that the individuals couldn't do it on their own. And so I hope we still have Pam with us, because I'd like to ask Pam, could you tell us how second chances make a difference with the clients? And, we use the word second chances a lot, but knowing the Phoenix Rescue Mission, sometimes it's a third and sometimes it's a fourth chance. The mission just doesn't give up on people. So Pam.
No, we don't. We believe that everybody deserves a chance, and it depends on their journey about when that chance works. And the Phoenix Rescue Mission has become, an agency that truly wants to be a builder of solutions to serve the needs of those that are out there. And so we hire licensed counselors who work one-on-one with our clients, and we are growing. We're ready to open our new men's facility on 35th Avenue, just south of Buckeye Road, where we will grow to serve from 130 men to serve 360 men in all levels of need from our community. The Phoenix Rescue Mission truly, truly, truly believes that everybody deserves a chance. And we want to be a part of building those solutions.
Pam, thank you so much for the great work that you do over there. And I wish we had time to talk about the Changing Lives Center for Women, but that was really born out of, we will show you how it's done. We're going to build this program and we're going to show you how people can recover and become good mothers again and have a safe environment to do so. So again, thank you for all the good work that you do.
Thank you. It's an honor to serve our community. Thank you, Jeff.
You bet. So we're coming to the end of our program. We have two short videos. These are two stories that come from a couple of fantastic organizations helping women successfully re-enter their community. The first one is Ariane, and the second one is Sister Ministries.
So my name is Julia Guerin. I have spent approximately 14 to 15 years incarcerated. My most recent incarceration was 4.5 years in Perryville, and I was released on December 16th, 2020. What do second chances mean to me? Second chances, everybody needs them. If we did not have a second chance, there would be no hope. Second chance to me would be actually reaching out and helping somebody get back on their feet, becoming successful, giving them motivation, and that's exactly what the Second Chance program in Arrowhead is doing. There are so many things, it's hard to list them all. They gave me resources, they gave me opportunities, they helped me build a plan, they helped me think, about my goals and what I wanted to do, my structure of environment, my living arrangements, all of those things. You have these ideas of what you're gonna do, but putting them into action is hard. Arrowhead does not let you be alone in that process. They actually help you step by step go through the process. Whatever you need at the moment, they are there, they reach out, and they continue to reach out after the release, and that's what's helped me be successful. Well, I can say that I got a job within 3 weeks after my release. Arrowhead was instrumental. Arrowhead helped me with my resume. They, kind of helped me discover or kind of decide what type of job that I wanted to do, what kind of money that I wanted to make. They discussed all of that with me. They actually sent my resume out to employers 20 minutes later, I was getting a call back. The very next day, I was getting an interview. That next Monday, I started working. So telling you a little bit about the job opportunity that I just received and got. I am working as a peer support specialist. It's funny because you don't really think that that's an opportunity coming right out of prison to get into, but actually that's the best time to do it because you have the experience. You just walked the walk. You just did all of these things, and people need to know that it can be done. And just by sharing my experience, the choices that I make, what I thought about, all of those things are helping others, not only to be successful, but just sharing your success motivates people. And I am in shock and awe that I'm sitting in the place that I am today, helping support others, because it's what I want to do. It's where my passion is, and I love it.
I was actually out in the streets, homeless, on drugs, and just, sleeping where I could, eating where I could, just trying to, provide for my drug habit, basically.
Well, I've been to prison 4 times. Started off at 79, 86, 98, and 2004. But all of them were pretty short term. The last one was 3.5 years. That was the longest, and I thought it was a lifetime.
I was a liar, a thief, and a cheat, and I'm an alcoholic.
When I went to prison, back to prison, because I've been there a few times, and in and out of jail.
Sister Ministries is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It's actually a parachurch organization developed to minister to formerly incarcerated women.
For any women that are in prison right now, our group goes in there, we're talking to them and counseling them. We always highly recommend Sister Ministries as a place to find restoration, a place to find other sisters who are going through the same walk, the same struggles, the same journey. And we always make sure that we bring in our brochures when we're behind bars. And we want to really tell these sisters who are in there to keep their hope up, to know that there's a better day.
From the first meeting as sister, I knew that I had a wonderful support system. And with Julie, she kept me accountable. And she would visit me at my home. And she just wanted me to do good. And she wanted to push me into, what God had for me. And it wasn't to go back to prison.
It was a nurturing, emotional, connection that I just felt. And I felt it, and it didn't cost me anything. It was a no-string situation. I didn't have to be a certain way.
It was a foundation that I could come out with and have people that were, have gone through what I've gone through, were looking for Christ, and their life had changed. So it was very important to have them there. It just made a lot of difference.
And it was the first week I was out, I came here to Sisters, and I just started coming. And they were support to me, they really were. And they made me see that it was something out there that was different.
We want to help take care of their physical needs so that we can continue and help as they struggle to rebuild their lives and to minister to their spiritual needs with the word of Jesus Christ. The other women that have been in the program already, they're able to offer this support as well. They give phone numbers out so that you have a friend to call if you're scared and you don't know what to do next. They've already been through it.
Doors just kept opening for me, they just kept opening, and I kept walking through them. And now I'm actually, I'm self-employed. So I'm really, truly blessed.
In May, I celebrated 9 years clean and sober. I go to a lot of AA meetings. I have a couple of different Bible studies. I go to church every Sunday. I have a church. I've been baptized. I'm in school. And I'm so blessed.
It would leave a hole in my life without having sisters there. I really believe it filled a need that I had, and I feel like it was a godsend. I went to Sisters for 3 years, and the only reason I stopped going to Sister was because I started going into the jail and doing jail ministry. I've been doing that for 6 years now.
My life without sister ministry would be nothing. Basically, nothing. You know, I'd be walking around here probably doing what I used to do if it wasn't for sister ministry.
I have custody back of my daughter. I have a 6-year-old. I'm married, and I own my own house, and things are good. Things are real good.
We certainly know that the challenges are great. And if you will take note that there are 85,000 people on probation statewide, and that we have 17,000 people in our prison systems. But today was a day of celebration. And I'm certainly touched by, the stories and the hearts of the people that have been on this call today, and also the people that were participants. We just encourage you to, as you close out, that there would be a brief survey. But between now and then, we have Jan. Jan, if you would give us some closing comments, and then we'll close out our effort for today.
This has been a wonderful event. I want to say food for thought. What are we going to focus on as we move forward into the future of successful reentry for our reentering citizens into our community? We all are involved in this journey. People coming from our criminal justice system are diamonds in the rough that need to be polished by our love, support, faith in them to become successful. I ask all of us to be open to the possibilities that this population has for being successful participants in our communities. In doing this, it will help us all to be part of a successful community. Thank you all for today. Be blessed.
Jan, thank you so much. And I can't add anything to what you just said. I just want to thank all of the participants and April and Regina. April Jones and Regina Weiler put this together. That's not part of my script I was given today, but a lot of work went into this. And this went way too smoothly. It just really went off well today. So thank you all for attending. And remember, we're much better together than apart.